Stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned. I'm here with the coach, John Brent.
And I'm here with the vet, Mr. N. Griffin.
Man, it's a good day today, Coach. What do you think?
Man, this is a great day. I'm excited about this one. I've been thinking about this one all weekend. Ready to see Petey. What's up, Petey? And Miss Chavarria, how are you doing tonight? So I'm excited.
So, Coach, tell us who we got here. Tell us what you got.
Well, I'll tell you who I got here on my bottom left here. Everybody can see is Mr. Derick Douglas. Better known to me has always been Petey. I mean, Petey from the hood. I don't know when we started school together, but I want to say first grade, maybe second grade. When was that, Derick?
Second grade.
Yeah, second grade.
I think that was Miss Seal's class.
Wow, second grade, Pittsburgh Elementary, all the way to graduation, 1989, baby. Yes, sir. So glad to have him on here.
So I figured we'll throw a picture here that old Derick can talk about a second here real quick. What do we got here, Derick?
First and foremost, we got the U.S. Army branded across my chest, HUA.
HUA.
Then see me partaking in one of my greater pastimes, which is lighting up the atmosphere with good old cigar smoke.
Man, I love it. I love it. Well, man, it's been a long time since Pittsburgh High School. I can tell you that. And it's good to have you on there, Derick.
Hey, appreciate you guys for having me.
I got to introduce Rebecca Chavarria, somebody who I served with, went downrange with the Delta Company Mighty 701st Delta Dogs. And we went to Iraq together to OIFII. And I do have to tell a story. Derick, you get to hear it twice, but I like it like that. But I want her to talk more than anything. But one story I will say is this here is we drove from Kuwait all the way up to Camp Spiker. And Rebecca Chavarria was I believe a 50 cal gunner. Am I right? Or was it Mark 19?
Mark 19.
Mark 19 gunner.
And a squad automatic weapon operator.
Yes, yes.
I weighed about 100 pounds soaking wet, and my first sergeant, Griffin, thought it was a great idea to make me the saw gunner, but I loved it.
She was an incredible gunner. And so 3-day road march in vehicles where the wind was probably blowing her out of the vehicle itself, all the way up there to Camp Spiker. And I'm talking days. I'm talking 20-hour, 23-hour days. We get up there. I turn in the trip report, and I have a soldier come up to me and go, "Hey, First Sergeant, Chavarria's got to go to the medical facility. She's complaining about her abdomen." And one of them said, "Oh, she's probably pregnant like the rest of the females." And I said, "Shut the F up," which I will be nice and say flip-flop up. But I said, "Shut the F up. We don't talk like that." And so we went over and checked on her, and the doctor said, "Hey, she's got to have her gallbladder removed." And this is the deal. She rolled in that truck 3 days like that. I couldn't imagine. I had my gallbladder. That was painful. And he goes, "We can either do it here, she'll be disabled for 6 months, or we can fly her to Landstuhl." So we flew her to Landstuhl, and they had the surgery. And my rear D first sergeant called me up one day and said, "Hey, we got a problem." I said, "What's the problem?" He said, "We lost Chavarria." I said, "What do you mean we lost Chavarria?" He goes, "She's not here, Top. We hadn't seen her in 2 days." I'm like, "What?" So I drive all the way across the compound of Fob Spiker, which is 16 square miles, to tell the S1 to give a report that we lost a soldier, can't find him. And she is sitting there. Now, for people that are not in the Army don't understand this, when I was a sergeant major, it would take me 6 days to get back in the country because you got to go to Kuwait, got to go to Baghdad. How a PFC got from Frankfurt, Germany to Kuwait, to Baghdad, and then hitch a ride to Spiker in 2 days is unprecedented. So anyway, I'll just leave that there. And I'm throwing it over to you, Chavarria.
Thank you. I had no idea that you guys did the report. I just, I was with a certain NCO that I was not very fond of, and I was like, I need to get the hell out of here. Like, it's either me or you. I'm out. You know, his name starts with a K, so I don't want to put anybody on blast. But we weren't the best buddies. But yeah, I had my surgery, and at the time, as you all know, for those in the militaries, when you're training, they become your brothers and your sisters. And I had no family in Germany. I wanted to be back out there with my people, and he was there. I remember his face. He was like, "Soldier, get over here." I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm in trouble." He's like, how did you get back here? I was like, well, I was over at Kuwait, and then they said they were going to Spiker. They had room. I just jumped in the truck. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. Now that I look at it as like a young, like as the older person, like being a young 21-year-old PFC, just like, oh yeah, let's go, guys. Like, I'm going on a cruise. I'm like, man, there's so much more that could have happened. But I wanted to be with my unit, and I wanted to be with my family out there. Everything aside, I think when you're younger, you don't realize your mortality. You're just invincible, and you just want to go. And that's where I was mindset.
Well, so I'm going to put a picture of your family before I do. Mrs. Griffin, she posts on there, Chavarria, one of the badass soldiers that have ever been around. And that's not a lie. That's a fact. So tell us about your family here real quick. And we got to get.
Yeah. So real quick.
Wow.
When I was in, I was a Soldier of the Month board. I would find the fastest male in the company, and I would try to beat them, push-ups, sit-ups. Like I was going for it. My goal was to be the first sergeant major of the Army, and people would criticize me saying, you can't do that. They're not in combat arms anymore. You have to be in combat arms. And now they've actually opened that up for female soldiers, which is so great. Unfortunately, I did not achieve that goal. I had no idea. I didn't know if I wanted to be married, if I wanted to have kids. And then I met my wonderful husband, who you see there, and all of that went out the window. And I want your babies. Like, so we ended up having 6 of them. And yeah, the rest is history. Now we're entrepreneurs. We support the military any way that we can.
That's awesome.
Very awesome. Very awesome, Rebecca. Well, so it is phenomenal day to day, because I'm just all grins. As a wife said, I tell that story in so many audiences that when I was a sergeant major, I would tell it all the time. And you were the bar for what a soldier should be. And I don't know if you ever knew that, your ears were burning or not, but the dedication you had to your organization was definitely the right bar that soldiers need to aspire to. So I'm glad to have you on, Rebecca. And Derick, it's been a long time. It's good to have you on. So,
hey, like I said, I'm just glad to be here. Funny thing, I served with you as well as 2nd COSCOM. Bumped into you by accident in Stuttgart.
yes, sir. And that's a story in itself. Is I didn't even know you had came in the Army, and we shared the same combat patch out of Stuttgart, Germany. And you came to where my ex worked at the time. And I'm like, no freaking way. How small can the Army be? You know what I'm saying?
Man, imagine my dismay when I walk into a German canteen and I hear my hometown nickname blurted across a German-speaking room. That didn't set well with me.
You were famous across the water.
Famous man.
So the first thing we want to talk about tonight, now we got everybody on, is we want to talk about today's work ethic compared to how when we were young, or what your expectations are. So I'm going to throw it out to Derick. What are your thoughts on that right there?
Well, seeing as how between me, you, and Brent, our blood is from the same mud. Country living, no, in and out. That's just all it is. We woke up to wake the chickens up so they could crow. And we didn't go to bed until everything, including our chores and our schoolwork, was done. I mean, we touched on it earlier. To me, there's nothing replacing a good, solid work ethic. get it done. So therefore, you've got it done. You got it right the first time, and you can have all the rest of the time in the world to do what you want to do later on. And to me, just in my personal opinion, society has made it so easy for people to be lazy that it's had an overall effect on what people call hard work. I mean, don't get me wrong. Everybody has their own fulfillment of definition when it comes to the terminology hard work. Because what we consider hard work, our predecessors don't consider hard work. They were looking at us like, hey, you guys barely do anything. You know, that old anecdote of we walked uphill to school in the snow both ways. You know, those old kinds of stories like that to impress upon us that we might be working, but what we're working on is not considered as hard work to them. And it's just a different cut of people in a different cut of society now that leans a whole lot more to the technological and less to the hands-on. It's kind of hard for me to grasp what people call hard work nowadays versus what we know to be hard work.
So true.
I agree, Derick. And so one thing I'll ask is, do you think today's society, that we've imposed a lot of things, and I look at how our children are raised, how my first four were raised compared to my last one. And sometimes I think I enable laziness. And not that he's a lazy kid, but he don't do half the stuff that my other kids had to do. I can tell you that right now. And that's just the way of parenting. So what are your thoughts on that, Derick, before I throw it over here to
I think that it's not so much of us enabling, as you just said. It's more of us identifying the fact that we progress to a certain point in our society. We're not that we've become dinosaurs, but a lot of the stuff that we do nowadays is not, it's not obsolete, but it's just not as hands-on necessary as it used to be. We're, as they would like to say, we're more civilized culture now. But the Bible even tells you, hey, seek ye the ways of old. My kids all know how to plant a garden. They know how to mow a yard. They know how to, get out and use their hands. They know how to hunt if they have to. They don't like it, but they know how to do it. So in the event that an EMP should go off and all technology gets wiped out, they got a halfway decent chance of survival. So the whole concept of what society calls hard work versus what isn't hard work, I leave it upon everybody to search their own souls and place definition on that for themselves.
Derick, you might have to explain what EFP is. There, we got
electromagnetic pulse. Sorry about that.
No, that's
See,
all right.
there's people like me. We got to know this. I got to know.
Well, hey, so Rebecca, I'm going to throw it over to you here real quick and see what you got. Now, I understand you're an entrepreneur yourself with you and your husband, and we want to know how this affects everything in y'all's business and such.
Sure. I do agree with Derick on a lot of the topics that you spoke with. It is very hard to employ a work ethic in a generation of people that are being coddled by the government. And I mean that in the most fondest way possible, meaning that if you are a struggling employee of somebody and you needed the assistance of the government, yes, do it, take it. That's what it's there for. That's what we pay our taxes for. However, when they are making more on unemployment to sit on their butt than to come to work every day, is building this type of mentality in people that the government will take care of it. They will do this. It is so hard. We hire delivery drivers, and it is not easy work. It is not for the faint of heart. We have a series of screening questions that we ask them, and if they fail any of those, that's just on the pre-screener, meaning, are you able to stand up at least 100 times in an hour? You're getting out of trucks, you're going to and from stops. And we hire young people because unfortunately, people that graduated in 1989 can't. I'm just kidding. Just kidding, guys. I'm kidding. No, but unfortunately, that the older they are, us veterans, like I have a knee problem. Not a spring chicken anymore, but that's not a job that I can do. However, my work ethic is there. If I had to, I would suck it up and do it. But we're just finding that with the younger generations, they're great at the technology, following the GPS systems, but they're calling out the day after they get paid. They just will not show up to shifts. They talk back to the employers. They litter the vehicles that we lease out so that they can drive it. So not only are they not showing up to work, they're just not taking care of their equipment that they need to go forward with that. It's just a different generation. And I know that you guys had mentioned, Derick had mentioned that you guys are all waking up to feed the chickens. I was a city girl. I grew up in the city, but my parents instilled in me that you have to work for what you want. You have to get up every morning. You have to go to work. You're not late. You're not calling in sick. And then just kind of touch base on what you said, because I do have children, and I agree with you that there is a sense of, I don't know if laziness is the correct term, but my son does have lazy tendencies. And instead of me panicking sometimes to get it done, I'll just do it for him. Like, you know what? I don't want to fight with you. I just want to do it. So that's not teaching him anything. It's more convenient for me, but not for him or his growth or his development. The generation right after us was the participation trophy generation. You're going to get something no matter what. And they take that into work. As far as the COVID, we now have to pay COVID for people that, looked at somebody that had COVID. It's just this entitlement after entitlement after entitlement where, hey, I don't want to do it, so my mommy's going to do it. Somebody's going to come and save me.
Go ahead, Coach.
Well, when I first got this question, I knew we were going to talk about it. Three things came to my mind immediately, and three of the things that I see that's different from when we grew up to millennials or Gen X, whatever they want to call them now, is parenting was first. I mean, first of all, failed parenting strategies of the participation, which she brought up, the participation medals. Also been told that you're special, or you do things that you didn't earn. Like with the participation, I tell my students sometimes, I say, do you understand that when we used to get in trouble at school, our parents would come to the school, we'd get whipped at school, we'd get whipped after school. Nowadays, the parents are coming to the school and cussing out the teacher or cussing out the principal and taking their kids home and saying, baby, I'm sorry you had to deal with that type of thing. And then when they get into the real world, they realize they're not special. They're not going to be given a medal for last place at work, and they have to show up, and parents aren't going to get them out of a problem. They got to deal with it on their own. They have problems with that. The second thing is the technology is great, but the technology is parenting a lot of times. And when you have the technology parenting, you forget the social skills that you need to be able to work with other people and be able to deal with, clientele, because you don't have that experience anymore. So the first thing was parenting, second was technology, but the third one was the one that got me almost immediately is kids today are impatient. They absolutely believe that they should be given something immediately. And it's because they have that gratification issue. Everything now is self-gratification. You can be sitting at home bored and order something from Amazon. You can be sitting at home and a pizza's delivered in 15 minutes. You can, so there's no waiting for anything. So remember when our parents would, and even ourselves say, go to school, get an education, find you a good company, work for them, get a savings account, build up, buy a home, plan your retirement, and raise your kids. Nowadays, kids are coming out going, where's my Corvette? Where's my condominium? Where's my, because they've been told they've been special from 5 years old, and parents are not parenting the way to prepare them. Parentings are parenting the way to be their friends. So I believe of this hard work that we used to have was just the parents telling us you had to work. You had to work for something instead of all of a sudden now it's just owed to you. We're the owed to you generation, what we have now.
So Coach and Rebecca and Derick, I'm gonna talk a little bit about how I see it. And I agree with everything everybody said to begin with. I think we're cut from a different mold though. That class of 89, I'm not an 89er, but I'm an 87er. So anyway, I mean, I just look at my,
coming.
I know real soon. I I get that AARP card here real soon too. But I started work at 11, man. And, you know, at 11 years old, I started work every day. I was physically not in school. I was working. And that's a different mentality today. That mentality doesn't exist. And it's so as much, and it's not allowed. I mean, that was farm labor then. And, you know, people go to jail for hiring 11-year-olds now. I don't know why that is. It worked out well for me, but that's the first thing I'll say. And the second thing I'll say is I know two people who run businesses here that I'm very close to. And one was telling me that, dude, I need somebody to come work, you know, and do some truck driving and do some dozer work and things like that. And I'll have a guy hit me up and say, hey, man, I really need a job. I really need a job. My family needs this. He says, okay. And 2 days later, he doesn't even show up for the first 2 days. And you're like, what the heck? I thought you needed a job. Well, you know, I didn't feel like getting up. You're like, what? I would have never done that. My wife and I talk about this a lot is I've heard some people say, well, we go in late to work all the time. And like, late? I've never been late to work. I think one time when I was a private, I was late to work once, you know, but that's just not a mentality that I had. So I think that type of mentality has changed significantly. And with, I will say, the coach and Derick, we all came from the same mold that you didn't have that mentality. But also, I will say Derick and Rebecca, we came from that mold of the military that was definitely a no-no. You lost money, you lost rank over stuff like that. And so I'm just kind of, I'm kind of at wits because I don't understand it. Is how can you have a job starting out, your first job's at a fast food place, and you're like, well, I'm scheduled to work 5 days, but I'm going to call in 2 of them and be off. I'm like, how do you do that? They depend on you. I'm sorry, but a manager depends on you. Go ahead. Somebody was about to say something.
I have to say something. I'm going to say something real quick about that. My daughter, my youngest daughter, works at Brookshire's. Well, actually, both of them work at Brookshire's. One's in the pharmacy, one's a cashier. But they actually have now some kind of system for the employees that if somebody doesn't want to go to work, they can put the information on there and someone take their shift without even the supervisor being involved. So I don't understand this. So they're moving around schedules and stuff because, Mom, I don't feel like working, or, oh, I need to go with my boyfriend somewhere. And just so the shift's covered, the jobs are allowing it to happen. And I don't get that, but that's not just Brookshire's where they work. I hear about that at other places. So that's a different thing that's happening when we grew up also. You couldn't call in on a shift unless you were sick.
Yeah, we were part of that generation that you worked what you were told to work. If you were told to be in at 5 in the morning, you better make sure you up by 3:45 so that you can get there. If you called off from work, you got docked that pay, and you were worried about if you were going to have a job. I mean, but then again, as we illustrated, it's a difference in the generations, and a lot of the businesses have catered to that difference by making it easier for their employees, which is not always a bad thing because you're keeping your manpower flowing from one work shift to the next. And you're putting it as far as a level of responsibility to make sure that that person covers their tracks, which is a kind of an adult thing to do. Look, if you want off, it's up to you to make sure that someone can cover your shift. If they can't cover your shift, you might as well look to be at work. So I can see where it influences a certain amount of adulthood, but at the same time, you're allowing people to come in and dictate how your business is going to run, meaning that once they actually get out there in the real world, if they think that somebody is going to allow, if they do get involved with a Fortune 500 company, no, that's not the way they operate. By doing that now and implementing that type of mindset, with allowing that type of leeway, that carries over in what your expectations are when you hit the real world.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have to say about that, touching on something that Derick just said, is that I own a business in one of the most liberal states in the United States. We as employers have absolutely no control. Literally, our employees can go in and cry anything to the labor board and we're getting fined just because they went there. It's not conducive to employers, which is why there's so many high-tech companies that are leaving California. It is crazy. Somebody can go and wreck our van and demolish it, and they have no accountability. The state of California will not allow us to charge them for that or pay for the insurance. It all falls on us, which is why so many businesses in California go under within the first 2 to 3 years. It's maniacal.
That's insane. So, Coach, the thing you was talking about, and we're going to close it out here. I was a young E5 in Korea, and you have this thing called a duty roster where you're in charge of the whole barracks at night. Derick and Rebecca understand it. CQ is what it's called. And you're responsible for the health and welfare, make sure nobody gets in fights, nobody breaks in, nobody does all the bad things that soldiers probably could do, you know. And so halfway through the night, I had a friend go, Griff, man, you look tired. And I said, I'll give you $20 if you take my duty the rest of the night. He goes, okay. So we do that. And people buy duty all the time in the military. But I didn't get it approved at 11 o'clock at night with the first sergeant. Well, you know how those first sergeants can be. I don't know about those guys. But the next morning, he let me know I didn't have the authority to ever do anything like that. And who the flip-flop was I to even think of making a decision as such? You know, that was just a mentality. And I learned real quick that you don't play reindeer games like that, you know. So anyway, so I think it's time to move on for this subject. But before we go to the next topic, I got to throw a little advertisement out here because we got to make some pennies somehow. So how we pay for the coach and the vet is if you come by our shop, stuff like this right here is what help pays for our stuff. So go to www.thecoachandthevet.com and you can buy a water bottle like that, or you can buy, like the coach has, a good, nice coffee mug right there as well. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to the coach for the next topic.
Well, I have to say, I love the topic. The discussion that we have, there's always going to have people with different opinions. They come from different places. So I love to hear Rebecca's thoughts on the hard work that we wish we had more of. She's a small business owner. I used to be one years ago. And so a lot of times we think of it differently. But I'd like to also talk about something that's been going on in the country that's been a big topic that we actually touched last week, Vet, is talk more a little bit about with these two great people on here about Major League Baseball's decision to move the All-Star game from Georgia to Denver and the effects that it's had now in Georgia, from Stacey Abrams coming out and saying, oops, I wish they wouldn't have done that, from Biden coming out, you know, early on, President Biden coming out early and say, hey, you know, there's an issue with this, that, you know, the new Jim Crow 2.0 or whatever the politics is of it. Let's talk about what happened with Major League Baseball doing that and what happened in Georgia. Are we for that? Are we against that? Or give me your actual you know, what you think about it. And Rebecca, let's start with you and Derick. I'll have you follow up after her if you don't mind.
Sure. So honestly, when we started talking about this, I have 6 kids. So if it wasn't, you know, Paw Patrol or Dora the Explorer, I was like, wait, what happened? So I had to go into the adult world for a little bit. And I was reading on it. And honestly, there is just so much. There's this side and there's this side, and like he mentioned the Jim Crow laws, and I think that's a little bit offensive to put that up there with him, because those were very serious. That was, you know, talking about civil rights. But I think the reason why he compared it was because of the polling stations that the underserviced communities are going to be losing. But for the Major League Baseball to pull out specifically because of that topic, I feel was really childish, and it just shows that corporations are really the ones behind things, backing things. You know, if you don't do what I want you to do, then I'm going to take my power. And I was reading further into it that the amount of jobs that local Georgians are going to lose by taking that away. So you're making a statement at the cost of the people who live there. Is it really, do you really want to make a stand? How much is the MLB influencing voters either way, whether, you know, it's a Republican, Democrat? Like, what is the agenda behind it? Is it really to oppose those laws?
Yeah, before I throw it over to Derick, I want to just kind of clarify one thing. It's been said anywhere between $80 and $100 million is going to be lost in the Atlanta area based on the move from Major League Baseball from Atlanta to, Denver. Stacey Abrams, which has been very much in conversation the last 3 or 4 years and done a lot with voting and also with the state of Georgia. She's been really good for them. Has come out and said, I wish they wouldn't have done that because I don't want to hurt my people here in Georgia. So I think sometimes the emotional charge of Major League Baseball or certain people saying, ban something or cancel something, that maybe there should have been more of a conversation before to realize what it was going to do to the people there on the ground. Derick, what do you think about it? We all have our own opinion on this. What do you think?
I think in the form of the actual decision being made was a very knee-jerk decision. I think it was something that happened where they really didn't put enough thought into it, and they did it, and it's proven to be very, very knee-jerk because of the simple fact of, like you said, just thinking on the big picture, you're looking at 2 different points. Number one, like Stacey Abrams said, hey, look, I don't want to hurt my city. I don't want to hurt my city. And that's what that did. Because of the fact that they made such a knee-jerk decision, you think about it. How many vendors, how many promoters, how many party planners, how many event coordinators depended on that small amount of time to pull a large sum of money into Atlanta for that one particular event? We'll go so far as to say a lot of the people start flying in, just people who are attending events start flying in to Atlanta at the first part of the week before the events even start kicking off. So you're talking about the airline industry, hotel industry, restaurant industry, just about everything in the private sector that stood to be paid off in a big bump of money during that time frame. And then you start looking at other small avenues of income. How many people do we know that have sideline businesses where they make t-shirts, where they make hats, all types of things that are memorabilia for that weekend? People who dare go so far as to, as you've seen it here for the Texas State Fair, they'll rent out their front yards where people can park their cars, at $10 for the whole day, and they make a couple of $1,000 before the entire time frame is over with. This has hit every faction of business, but at the same time, as Rebecca pointed, it actually shows what type of pull all the major sports industries have when it comes to politics, because a lot of these different sports industries, the people who are sitting up in the owners' boxes make hefty contributions to whatever political party that they influence. So we're talking about money that is being donated off of these particular industries that help influence whatever political avenue that they belong to or that they support. So it's a double-edged sword. You want to maintain your level of influence, but at the same time, you don't want to have your name associated with anything negative. So I'm not for it, but I'm not against it. But at the same time, I still say it was a bad call.
Yeah. One thing I want to say on it real quick is all these events. I saw something recently was a documentary on the Japanese getting prepared for the Olympics that are not going on and how much money goes in previous to, because you find out about Major League Baseball or an All-Star game or a Super Bowl years in advance. So they've had people years in advance planning for this and people putting in money. Some of them have gotten loans, some of them gotten money out that they're going to make all that money back for that week, that now they're not making that back. People are going to go into debt. People are losing jobs. We're already in a pandemic. So I think I'm right with Derick. No one thought it through long-term what it was going to do to the community in Atlanta. Atlanta is a great place. It's a big place. It's a growing place. You got one of the largest airports in the world there. They needed that money. They needed that publicity to keep that rolling. And, Georgia in the last year and a half has been huge in our country, huge in our politics, huge in our choosing our president. They needed that game to showcase them. And this would have been a way to say, you know what, we don't agree with something, but we're going to play this game and we're going to do it because this is what's best for Georgia.
So, Coach, I was watching the news today when I got done. I was outside doing a lot of yard work and finally came in. I watched the news a little bit. And with Georgia, you had Delta Airlines, you had Apple, and you had Major League Baseball all kind of get together. Although, from what I understand, is two of those companies actually had got to see the bill before it was signed, and they didn't have beef with it then. That's what I understand. If I'm wrong, I'm not afraid to say I'm wrong, but that's what has been reported. Michigan now has pulled together 5 companies, one of them including Ford. And I love Ford because Ford has never received a government bailout. Ford has always stood on their own, and Ford Field, all these things. It's a good family business. And but 5 of them are already pulled together to analyze any business or any action that they can put their fingerprints on where it could be controversial with the voting. And so I don't know, is some part of me says, let the politicians be politicians and let car makers be car makers and let baseball players be baseball players. I'll also say this is, I know some people say, well, hey, they have this platform, let them use their platform. I don't disagree with that. But what I will say is when I go to the ballpark, I want to watch a game and I want to get away from my politics. I want to eat a hot dog and enjoy a hot dog at a ball game, a ballpark frank. I want to drink a beer and I want to enjoy time with my family. So when I go home 5 years from now, I can look at one of my kids or whoever I went with and go, you remember when we went to the Detroit Tiger game? Or you remember when we went to the Texas Ranger game? Not, you remember when we went to the Detroit Tiger game and we talked politics the whole damn time? Or they were all out there showing me politics? No, I don't do that. I go there because I want to sit there and go, I want to embrace the moment of America's pastime in any other sport. And that's just me. Now, not everybody's the same as me, but that is how I think and how I feel about it is I just want to experience the game. I hope it's not a 1-0 game. I hope it's like a 15-14 game where people suck on the outfield, but that's just me. So anyway, I'll throw it over to you, Coach.
Well, last thing I want to say, and I want to throw Rebecca in on the end when we get to the next question is this, is I remember, the guys in the Olympics holding their hands up with the black gloves on. And I remember over the last 40 or 50 years when things were not going in our society the way that some athletes thought it would be, that they took a stand and they made a stand, but it didn't kind of flow over into the, companies making decisions for us. If I don't like, the guy doing that, or if I don't like Colin Kaepernick, kneeling, or if I don't like somebody taking a stand, I can choose as an American to not watch that sport or to support that protest. But, it seems like when you get people or companies or even states to push something onto us, it's like, well, we can't think for ourselves, and I can't turn the channel or turn that channel up if I want to listen to it and go, hey, you know what, Major League Baseball, I'm going to watch you because I'm for you moving it to Denver. Or, hey, you know what, forget the All-Star game because they moved it when they shouldn't have. It's taking it out of the hands of the people that actually support and pay for these people. It is us as the fans. So I'm not totally for them moving it. I understand there's an issue that people had, but I'm always for, let's discuss it. Let's debate it. Let's have a conversation, and then let's talk about it even more if it's not enough. But don't ban and cancel somebody. I'm tired of cancel culture. I'm going to put back my Pepe Le Pew shirt on.
Go ahead, Rebecca. What do you got?
No, I absolutely agree with everything that he's saying. It just brings me back to when my child, my oldest child, was actually diagnosed with ADHD, and his teacher in pre-K didn't get along with him, and she brought us up to the principal's office and literally told us to our face, I don't get along with your son. I think you should move him to another teacher. And I said, no. It is your job to teach him, and it is his job to learn that you can't just go and leave because you're uncomfortable or you don't get along. Be friends and teach my son. And I made him stay. And it kind of seems the same way that people are just like, I don't like that, I'm going to go over here, which is, you're right as an American to do whatever you want. But what does that show the rest of the world, the rest of the nation, is that you're just going to throw a little temper tantrum because, it doesn't agree with you. There's tons of things that I don't agree with a lot of other people, but I'm not gonna, I don't know. I just feel like Derick said that it was a knee-jerker move. It was unthought out. It was not planned properly, and they just wanted to make a stink. They just wanted it's whoever. It's like whoever's the more flashier now. Who did this? What company did that? It's all a game of social media and who's doing what, who's moving, whose eyes are on us right now.
The classic scenario of I'm taking my ball and going home.
I did that a few times from the park, though.
Well said. Well said. Well, hey, Coach, I'm going to throw this last advertisement and we'll hit the business end of it. We're going to hit the last part of it here. So here we go. In case you want a hat, come on down with us here. We got a hat for you also on the Coach of the Vet. Y'all didn't think I was going to pimp everything out here, but I am today. Trying to get some this stuff here helps pays for our site, actually. So it's a good thing. So moving along, it's time to get on to the last topic tonight. And the last topic is, and I'm going to start with you, Derick, but I'm going to ask, what are your thoughts on the border crisis and what can be done to fix it?
My thoughts on the actual border crisis, it's a necessary evil. When you look at the fact of, and pardon me, I use the term evil very loosely. When you look at the terminology of the word crisis, that means things have reached a point to where they're beyond, beyond the average, solution of getting it resolved. This is not something where you can just go, oh, well, just throw a Band-Aid on it. No, we're throwing a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here saying that, we have no resources whatsoever to get anything taken care of with as many of the people who are coming across the borders illegally, this, that, and the other. First and foremost, let me say, as an American, I am all for people coming into this country legally. I am for that 100%, because for every tax dollar that we pay out, the people who are here in an illegal status, that is having to take that dollar and turning it into 75 cents for every single tax-paying citizen. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand. I completely understand the concept of hardship. When you're willing to do whatever the hell you got to do to make a better life for you and yours, when you're doing it in an aspect of you're legitimately looking out for you and yours. But again, there's a right way of doing things. So, and it just strikes me kind of funny that now that everything has transitioned from the Trump administration to the Biden administration, now the Biden administration has gone on record as to say, well, we need to do something about the border. We need to do something about the wall, this, that. Oh, so now you guys want to say something about the wall. Now it's a necessary situation to think about. But that's another topic for another day. But as far as the actual border situation, I think that it is a necessary thing that we have to embark on to complete, if for no other reason, to get it, not to keep anybody out, but to get it under control. And that's the thing. Why is it such an issue? And a lot of Americans are being sold on the idea that we're just trying to strong arm people and saying that you can't come to America and this is our country. No, we're trying to establish people coming into this country the right way, to protect the better interest of everybody who is here, versus just saying you can't come here. Secondly, how do I feel like it should be resolved, or what can be done? Both sides of the fence need to understand that this is not an overnight fix. Please excuse, I'm outside, airplanes passing overhead and everything right now. But this is not an overnight fix. The government needs to understand the little man's situation in this. These are our tax dollars that you're playing with. And it's the lives of people who are at stake trying to get into this country. They wouldn't be coming over here just for the sake of coming over here. They've got something that they're running from. So there's a sense of legitimacy and urgency on the people who are trying to get into this country. We fashioned ourselves to be the greatest country out there, that everybody wants to be a part of it. Well, guess what? It's proving true by all these people trying to get into the country, hell bent to get here. And on the other end of it, it is our job as the citizens to understand that the government, they got a big decision to make in making sure that all this goes down the right way, so as to not cripple ourselves as a country, to make sure that all the I's are dotted, all the T's are crossed, and alleviate as much stress and pain to each and every tax-paying citizen when it comes to making sure that everything goes correctly. Because at the end of the day, the government is in charge of our money and how it's taken out of our checks to fuel this beast that we're calling the border crisis. So that's just my take.
Well, Rebecca, what's your take on it? Because one of the things that we were trying to see is, and Rebecca, I think you can fix the whole problem. Tell us how you would fix the problem.
So 100% agree with Derick. And to ignore the race issue, first of all, I'm Mexican, Spanish descent. So I do have, it's really odd, but I have family in Spain and I have family in Mexico. So I could see, right here at the border, or people coming, the other way. Is I don't agree with the way that, of course, it was handled. We all seen the pictures of the children in the cages and separating children from their families. I completely think that is out of control. That is one of the first things that needs to be addressed. Coming into a country illegally, separating mothers from babies, and then being reunited 7 years later is atrocious. And I think that America should be ashamed of that aspect. However, I am a proud American, served in the Army, and I do believe that immigration needs to happen the right way. I don't care if you're black, blue, purple, orange, or yellow. You need to do it the right way. Our tax dollars do need to be, supported that way, and I completely support immigration in that way. I do believe that the precedence on which the wall was first pitched was on a racist, and people were being so blinded and so having so much propaganda about Mexicans and the border, and we're going to make them pay for it, and it just stirred a lot of emotions with the Mexican Americans and the Mexican people, that people lost the focus of, okay, what is going on with these immigration laws? It's not just the Mexicans coming over. You have different races that are coming in troves, that are kind of, I don't want to say being Trojan horses, but they're taking advantage that we're looking over here at this Mexican border when all of our other borders are open to different types of races and ideologies that are coming over. And if we stop one problem or we're facing something, it cascades through everything. So typical politics and social media, you're focused on one thing without looking at the rest of the problem. But I do agree with him that it is a necessary evil. However, it does need to be fixed. The way that people are coming over, detainees, etc. That is my opinion.
Yeah, one of the things I want to say, Vet, before I'm gonna let you end this because we're getting close to the end, is this is not a situation that started with Trump or Obama. This is a situation that was talked about heavily from President Clinton on, really, that there always needed to be a fix going on. So it's not a Republican issue, it's not a Democrat issue when it comes to finally coming up with a solution. But what it has happened, because Trump is so looked at as a person that's so divisive, and Obama to others were looked at as divisive. Now it's become so political that whoever's in power is the one that can fix it. Whoever's not in power is going, the people that are in power can't fix anything. Then until we pull the politics out of it, the crisis just continue getting worse. You got more people in cages, you got more people coming over now than you did a year ago. And it should be less now. This is such an issue that it should be less every month. We should be doing something. And I will say this, I've never heard a Republican, Democrat, I've never heard a conservative, liberal, I've never heard a black, white, Hispanic, anyone say, we don't want people here coming to America legally. I've never heard anybody say, I don't want you coming legally. So if we're going to try to find a common ground on something, is if everybody wants everyone to come legally, then let's figure out a way to get everybody to come here legally and quicker and easier, because the more people that come here are going to be paying more taxes, going to be help paying that $30 trillion down. But let's get them here, but let's do it legally, and let's get the move on, Vet. Let's get it.
So, Coach, real quick, I'm gonna throw this out here. I think everybody brought some great points. First of all, if we're going to fix it, immigration, you have to fix it with laws. And Congress, since Bill Clinton, has not done it. And I'm going to say there's some reasons behind that. The president, he's the target. He's the guy that's getting the spears. Makes it a controversy for the first year of everybody's times that they're in the office. And then it kind of fades away because people lose momentum on it. But Congress itself is political suicide for a lot of them, because if they rub their constituents the wrong way, in 2 years, they're out of there. And that's the problem right there. Congress will not act because it's, in their minds, for most of them, it's political suicide, because they will not have ever done enough on it to get it right. So they leave it be. They're happy with the status quo. They're happy to make it an issue when it's not their guy, but when it is their guy, they don't want to make it an issue. And that's the first problem we have to do. We're aiming the arrows at the wrong people, which is the president. So, but I will say this. My wife made this comment after seeing the 2 kids dropped off the wall at the border that were 3 and 5 years old. And then the other day, seeing the young little 10-year-old boy talking to the border patrol in tears, crying. She goes, "This is not their fault. This is not their fault. And no kid should be treated that way. Ever, ever. This is not their fault." Now, I got some major beef because I feel right now we've kind of dropped the ball right now because we didn't want to admit it's a crisis for one. And how we stomped on some toes in Mexico, you know, as of lately, we had Mexico working with us. And now we said, hey, come on up here north. And we kind of threw out and didn't consult with Mexico because they have to feel the brunt of that. And like you said, Rebecca, it's not just people from Mexico coming or Central America. It's 39 different countries in one day are coming through that alley all the way up through Mexico. And as good stewards or good neighbors in foreign policy, one of the things we should have done was lock shoulders with Mexico before making any statements. And we should have worked out a well-coerced plan in that and not done it after the fact, after it become a crisis. At the end of the day, I think everybody's right in here. This is not a party problem. It is a problem with our elected officials that sit in that Capitol building. Problem. If it's going to get fixed, it has to be fixed there. They have to pass some laws they hadn't passed in 20 years. So, Coach, with that, I kind of have to tidy it up. What you got, Derick, real quick?
I just wanted to add on top of what you just said. Just a personal experience. I'm a member of a fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. I operate with the Commerce Greenville Alumni Chapter, and they are new on the map when it comes to being an established chapter. And this ties in directly to what you're saying, because what happened was recently they undertook a community service project in which they bought basically a truckload of water, and they went to one of the neighboring states and they just distributed the water. And they did it because it was community service, which is one of the things that we're responsible for doing. Now, what wound up happening several weeks later, our grand chapter, based out of Philadelphia, called the president of the alumni chapter and said, who gave you guys the authorization to pull that off? And he basically told him, no one. He said, well, how did you get this done? We just did it. We saw a need. We analyzed the need. We constructed a game plan. We fulfilled the need. And the grand chapter basically told him, well, we've been trying to mobilize to do something like that for quite some time, but we have a whole lot of different hoops that we have to jump through because of the legitimacy of business that we have to conduct here. Whereas you guys just went ahead and did it. So the next time you guys decide that you want to do something like that, let us know and we'll write the check. Whatever the cost is, we'll take care of it. That, in the nutshell, is the common man. We just want to fix the problem. We just want to take care of it. But in the Capitol, they are so busy trying to follow the letter of the law, trying to figure out who's going to commit political suicide if they do this, that, and the other. There's so much personal interest on a individual welfare level that they're neglecting the problem at hand that needs to be taken care of. Whereas if it was left in the hands of the common individual, it could be taken care of swiftly and effortlessly by just getting up and doing something directly about it and laying hands on the actual issue, which goes right into what you were saying. In the Capitol building, they're too busy trying to coordinate business, to say, and they're missing the mark by trying to go ahead and follow all these protocols and all these different doctrines that they have to follow to get things done, when all at the end of the day, all they really have to do is just do it. Get it done. Because to be totally honest, that's making us look even more pathetic on a world stage by letting this problem fester as long as how many different administrations have gone through the same problem when it comes to immigration. We have had exactly 5 administrations on a 4-year turnaround per administration. So in the nutshell, that's 20 years. So you mean to tell me for 20 years, we can't figure this out as a country?
Well, we have 3.5 minutes left. I want to say something really quick, and then I'm gonna kick it over to you, Vet, to finish this off. But this is what we need more of. We have an African American man, we have a Hispanic female, we have 2 white guys, and we're actually having a conversation, and no one's talking over each other, no one's cursing each other out, no one's claiming racism. We're actually trying to figure out a problem. I mean, a solution to the problems that we're talking about. And I really think that we can take this into our community, not just on social media, but if you can talk to people, your neighbors, whoever, have a conversation, because like you said, 5 administrations, 20 years, it's been more about 35 years because some of these, butts have been in there 8 years, but you got to have something to start at the ground. If you want to fix the homeless problem in America, go take stuff out of your pantry and help the homeless in your community. That's a good start. So I think what we need to do is more what we're trying to do right here is talk to people that don't look like you, don't act like you, not even vote like you, and try to come up with a simple solution to these problems that seems to be so terrible for Congress. Well, let's start working on them here.
So, Coach, real quick, I'm going to throw it to Derick and I'm going to throw it to Rebecca. You got 30 seconds to give your farewell. So, Derick, you go first.
I'd like to thank everybody who's listening tonight. Thank you guys for inviting me. Rebecca, I heard about you. You're high speed. Who are you? And if anything, if I could say one thing about anything, as my classmate said, if you really want to make a change in this country, get out and help that person who's sitting there and they can't help themselves. Don't talk about the change, be the change.
Derick, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting and working with all of you guys. So to everybody that's listening and watching, I definitely think that the vet has brought up a good point. Just open up a dialogue. Don't be afraid to share your opinion. One thing that I always tell my kids is that if you have something that you object to, tell me why you object to it, not just because your friends are doing it. What are the facts? What is your reasoning behind it? And you may be able to change someone else's perspective and change the world.
So with that right there, I'm going to say from the coach, stay tuned, stay tuned, stay tuned.